Dia de los Muertos. Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a special holiday celebrated in Mexico and many other parts of the world. It takes place on November 1st and 2nd each year. Day of the Dead combines the ancient Aztec custom of celebrating ancestors with All Souls' Day, a holiday that Spanish invaders brought to Mexico starting in the early 1500s. Ofrendas. Families gather to celebrate the lives of ancestors who are no longer with them. People often create beautiful altars called ofrendas in their homes and communities. These altars are decorated with flowers, candles, food, and images of the deceased. Papel picado means punched or perforated paper. People cut tissue paper with different kinds of designs. They decorate the altars and the streets with them. Designs will include skulls, flowers, and birds. Calaveras, or skulls, are often made out of sugar, paper mache, or clay. They are placed on the altars. The sugar ones are not usually eaten, but used as decorations. They remind us of the sweetness of life and of our loved ones who have passed. Calacas, or skeletons, are used for decorations during the Day of the Dead festival. They can portray a family member who has passed. They are often shown wearing festive clothing, dancing, and playing musical instruments to indicate a happy afterlife. People also like to dress like them and parade in the streets. There are many specialty foods that are eaten for the holiday. Pan de muerto, a sweetbread shaped like bones, tamales, corn dough filled with meat, vegetable, or sweets, hot chocolate, a warm, spicy, sweet drink with cinnamon. Families gather at cemeteries to clean and decorate their ancestors' grave sites with flowers and candles. They will have a picnic with all of their loved ones' favorite foods. Families share stories of people who have passed. Through these stories, children learn about their ancestors. Dia de los Muertos is a time for families to gather and remember their ancestors now gone. People dance, sing, and share memories of their loved ones, welcoming their spirits who are thought to return briefly to take part in the celebration. For this project, you're going to go ahead and need either construction paper crayons or oil pastels, or you can use both. You're going to need some kind of a glue, either a glue stick or an Elmer's glue. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a pencil, and then for paper, you're going to have a few choices today. You are going to need to have, this is just a half sheet of copy paper, so it's 5.5 by 8.5. And then I have just some construction paper. These are 9 by 12. So you're going to need to choose just one of these colors for your background sheet, and then you'll use the other ones for your decorations. So let's go ahead and move a few of these things out of the way. And I think I'm going to choose blue for my background color today. Set my other sheets to the side. And I want to show you where we're going today. So we're going to be working first on creating our skull shape and our vertebrae and collarbones. So I'm going to take this half sheet of paper that I have, and I want to turn it into the horizontal direction, and I'm going to fold it in half. So I'm going to fold it hot dog style, and I want the opening to be away from me. So see how if I open it, the opening is away. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my skull shape. Now as I go to do that, I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm just going to make a mark right at the top so I know where I'm going to be going. And then I'm going to find the halfway mark. So right here is about halfway, and then I want to go down a little bit more and make a mark. So here's my halfway, so you see I went a little bit farther. And then in between here, I'm gonna go ahead and put a mark up at the top. And now what I wanna do here is I wanna make a big rainbow shape, okay, or a half a circle. So I'm gonna put in a curved line and a curved line. And you can see how I'm kind of sketching it in. I'm not just doing a hard solid line, I'm building it. So if you need to make adjustments to it, you can. Okay, so there is my half circle. And now I want to make the bottom jaw of the skull. So I'm going to I want to find about the halfway point between these two places. So that's about halfway. And I'm going to make a line coming down, and then I'm going to curve it in and bring it over here. And if I want, I could erase out this section. And you can see how I have my half of my skull shape there. Now, I have some extra paper here, so I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to make my collarbones and vertebrae. So I'm going to come to this very bottom chunk, and I'm going to come up just a little ways. And this right here is going to be my first vertebrae. If I want to round out my edges, I can. So there is a collarbone. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in a vertebrae. And so this one I don't want to be quite as big. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And that's going to give me 2 when I cut it, but I'd like to have 3. So I'm going to make another one right here. And I want these to be pretty similar in shape. I can see that I made this one a little bit smaller, so I'm going to grow it a little bit. I can always cut it down if I want to. So you can see that if you get something you don't quite want, you can just go ahead and build it out a little bit. So I have my collarbones, I have my vertebrae, and I have my skull. Now the first thing I want to cut out is my collarbone, and I can just go ahead and cut off that bottom chunk. And you're going to see how it's just one big one right now. So I need to go ahead and cut off this bottom edge and cut and round my corners over here. And that is going to give me my 2 collarbones. So I'll have 1 collarbone and 2 collarbones. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out some of my vertebrae. So I'll cut out a vertebrae next. I'm going to just cut that off so it's easier to manage. And what's nice about doing this is because my paper is folded, I already have 2 of them. So I can go in and place these in. And I need at least 1 more, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out this other one. Now I have some pencil lines on that, so all I have to do is flip it over, and then I'll have a clean one. So that gives me some vertebrae, and I actually like these bigger ones a little bit better, so I think I'm going to float that in there. So I have 2 collarbones, I have some vertebrae. I could have more vertebrae if I want, or less. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut out my skull shape. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. And when I open it up, this side has my pencil line, so I want to flip it over. And you can see now that I have my skull. So I am ready now to go ahead and start working on it. Now if I don't like my shape, let's say like, oh, I wish that was a little bit more rounded, it's a little too pointed, I could just come in and do a slight adjustment. So I just cut a little bit off. So once I have this part built, I want to go ahead and glue it down. Now you could use glue stick if you prefer glue stick, or you could use Elmer's. I actually really prefer Elmer's, so I'm going to use Elmer's today. You can use whatever you like. Just know that you want to use just as much glue as you need. You don't want glue oozing out everywhere. So I'm just going to use a little bit of glue. But I did all of my edges, and I'm going to glue it down. Now at this point I can go in some different directions here. And so I can go ahead and do some different cutouts for my eyes, nose, and mouth, for my teeth, and for my border. And if I have any fancy papers, I could play with fancy papers as well. So I happen to have some fancy papers when I made this one. So I actually went and played with a few different things when I did this, and I used cutout shapes for everything. So you could really go in either direction. I'm gonna work on doing some cutout shapes for my eyes. So now I'm ready to go ahead and put in my eyes, my nose, and my mouth. And I think that I am going to be using black for my color. So when I go to make my eyes, nose, and mouth, it's easier if you start with some smaller pieces of paper, okay? So I have a smaller chunk, and I know I want my eye to be about this big. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my drawing for the size eye that I think I'm gonna want. I think that's a good size. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fold my paper right at the edge where my drawing is, okay? And now what's nice about that is I'm gonna be able to go ahead and get that cut out, and I will get 2 of them because you can see how my paper is folded. I get 2 for my 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that eye out. Now I can put them straight up, or I can do a slight turn on them. I'm going to slightly turn mine because I like that. I like how that looks. And now I'm ready to make my nose. Often the noses are an upside down heart shape, and I have just enough paper left over from this scrap. So I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to fold this paper in half. And so I just have this little piece that's folded in half. It's about as big as I need for a nose. And now I want to draw a heart shape. So to make a heart shape, I start first just with a curve. Kind of like I just make a little tiny rainbow. And then I bring that rainbow over to the edge. So I started with a rainbow, and then I brought it over. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut that heart shape out. Now you'll notice when I did this, I drew on the side of the fold so that when I open it up, it's not going to be in 2 pieces. If you didn't draw it on the fold, then it will be 2 parts. So here is my nose shape, and I just put my heart upside down, and I will have my nose in there. And now I'm ready for my mouth, and I'm going to go ahead and build this kind of a mouth, I think, for this one. So I'm going to do just a simple kind of oval shape for that. So I can take one of my scraps, and I only need it to be about that big, so I'm just going to cut off a little chunk. I don't need it to be very large. I'm going to fold it in half because I want it to be the same on both sides. And I'm just going to round out my corners. So I just round it out. And that will give me a mouth shape. And I am ready to glue these beginning shapes down. While those dry, I'm going to go ahead and work a little bit on my border. Now I could do a checkerboard, or maybe I want to do big long pieces. I could really choose which way I want to go with it. And I think for mine, I would like to play with some long pieces, so I'm going to just cut out some strips. Teachers, if you wanted to pre-cut out some strips for your students, you could. Now while my border's drawing, I'm going to go ahead and start working in on my face. And so I actually want to use some cutout pieces for my teeth on this one because I think it'll show up a little bit brighter. And I think I'm going to be using some yellow. And I happen to have this little extra chunk of yellow here, so I'm going to fold it in half. And right now it's about the perfect size. So you can see how I can put it on there and see that's the size that I want. And I want them kind of rounded. So if I wanted to, I could pre-draw it. So I could put it up here so I can kind of see the size that I'm getting. Yeah, so I think those will work great. And I think I'm going to need at least 4 of them, maybe 6. So that will give me some of them. So now I can go ahead and cut those out. And because I folded my paper in half, I'm going to get 2 of each one. And I could try them out on there and see what I think before I keep cutting. Oh, that's great. I think I really only need one more. And I'm going to keep playing with a few more cutouts in mine. And anytime I want to, I will fold the paper in half. I can pre-draw if I want to, or I can just cut out. And I can keep going with cutouts, or I could start using oil pastels and construction paper crayons. So if I really wanted to, I could start to play with some other things as well. So if I wanted to play with construction paper crayons, I could start to add things in with those, or with oil pastels. Well, you might do things that show up really brightly, or something that's a little more subtle, like I'm doing right now. And I'm going to keep adding things on. I want to use more cut paper, so I'm going to keep cutting paper and adding on more items. I'm going to fold my paper in half so that I can get 2 of everything that I make. And I think I want some flowers extending from my eyes, so I'm going to make some petals. Now while my border's drying, I'm going to go ahead and start working in on my face. And so I actually want to use some cutout pieces for my teeth on this one because I think it'll show up a little bit brighter. And I think I'm going to be using some yellow. And I happen to have this little extra chunk of yellow here, so I'm going to fold it in half. And right now it's about the perfect size. So you can see how I can put it on there and see that's the size that I want. And I want them kind of rounded. So if I wanted to, I could pre-draw it. So I could put it up here so I can kind of see the size that I'm getting. Yeah, so I think those will work great. And I think I'm going to need at least 4 of them, maybe 6. So that will give me some of them. So now I can go ahead and cut those out. And because I folded my paper in half, I'm going to get 2 of each one. And I could try them out on there and see what I think before I keep cutting. Oh, that's great. I think I really only need 1 more. So I could add those in. And I'm going to keep playing with a few more cutouts in mine. And anytime I want to, I will fold the paper in half. I can pre-draw if I want to, or I can just cut out. And I can keep going with cutouts, or I could start using oil pastels and construction paper crayons. So if I really wanted to, I could start to play with some other things as well. So if I wanted to play with construction paper crayons, I could start to add things in with those, or with oil pastels. You might do things that show up really brightly, or something that's a little more subtle like I'm doing right now. And I'm going to keep adding things on. I want to use more cut paper, so I'm going to keep cutting paper and adding on more items. I'm going to fold my paper in half so that I can get 2 of everything that I make. And I think I want some flowers extending from my eyes, so I'm going to make some petals. So you're just going to keep adding things. You can see I finished adding my flower eye, I added a hat, and I started to play with my construction paper crayons a little bit. So you're just going to keep building, adding whatever you want in. So here is another example of the one that I did. You can see both of them side by side. So really in the end you have your basic structure, and then you just decorate whatever you would like. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.